Hey gang, Wes Buck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine, checking in with the brand new episode of our new podcast series, Drag Illustrated Shop Talk, a platform that we like to use to introduce you to the people behind the brands, right? The men and women that make these companies go around, support the sport of drag racing, spend their weekends at the track just like you and I. And today I'm super excited to have kind of an old friend of mine, somebody I've been running around with for a long time, one of my Midwest brothers, super exciting guy that's been around this sport and kind of seen it all from multiple angles as a participant himself, working in the industry, selling sponsorships, trying to get sponsorships, then getting on the other side of the fence and working as an integral part of a slew of different brands in the high performance automotive aftermarket space. So without any further ado, let's give it up for the Vice President of Sales at Aeromotive Brand Group, the one, the only Jeff Stacy. What's up, buddy?
Hi, Wes. How are you doing?
Man, I'm swinging and ducking out here. Are you melting in the Midwest? It is hot as you know what down here in Texas.
Yeah, it's not much different up here. It's definitely making it hard to race, making it hard to go outside. When you're follically challenged like me, you got to make sure the top of your head doesn't catch on fire. But, besides that, everything's really good.
I'm glad to hear that, man. It's been a season of change, I feel, at Aeromotive Fuel Systems and really the whole brand group that exists at this point. I'd love to kind of just get caught up. I remember, we've at various times in the past, Jeff, we've worked arm in arm and on a bunch of different projects, and Aeromotive's seen a big season of change, a lot of exciting new things. And why don't you just kind of bring us up to speed? The big rebrand is probably the focus of y'all's efforts, or has been I'm sure a big to-do in the offices as of late.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, right in the middle of COVID, Steve Matusik and Jack Hilton, the two founders and owners of Aeromotive, decided that they were ready to exit the business. So we were sold. We were sold into a private equity group, which was new for all of us. And we were really excited about that. I was so happy for Steve and Jack to get what they deserved, sacrificing 25 years of their life helping building this great company that we had. It was time for them to exit. They both were still young enough to go enjoy their money. So they left. So we were bought by private equity, a wonderful group of people. But we were the last piece of the puzzle that was going to allow this private equity to sell all of their automotive interests. So the next year we spent getting the company ready to sell again, which we were sold exactly 1 year later. So we went through 2 sales, and we finally feel now that we are back to normal. We are owned by another private equity. We have a whole bunch of other brands that are now attached with us and to us, and we're going to get back to doing what everybody knew Aeromotive did, and that was building fuel systems, that was solving problems, that was supporting racing, supporting the industry, and we're dragging the rest of our group now, which is comprised of Doug's headers, JBA headers, Petronix ignition, Taylor spark plug wires, with us. And we want to take them and turn them into what Aeromotive is for the racer and for the enthusiast. So we're really excited about what's going on right now. And we just continue to chug forward.
Does it, comparing it to the racing world, right? We talk all the time about how it can be advantageous for a crew chief to see multiple different combinations, right? Or race in different sanctions and series and different types of racing. Some of the most celebrated crew chiefs that have ever operated in this space tune a radial car, tune a no prep car, tune a big tire pro mod, maybe have dabbled in fuel cars or nostalgia nitro. Has it been a positive experience for the team to kind of see what these other brands that are now part of the team or part of the company, what they're doing, the way they attack things, maybe on the R&D side or product development, or maybe even their marketing or how they engage with customers?
Absolutely. We only knew what we knew. So we only knew Aeromotive and Waterman. And those two names are synonymous with drag racing, hardcore drag racing. We finally got Steve convinced about 10 years ago that we needed to build product for the street because the masses is where the money is.
Right.
So looking at some of our other companies that we have in this portfolio, I think I was pleasantly surprised at how big they were without a racing presence. So that kind of helped solidify the thought process that, hey, we're going to race and support on Sunday so that we can sell on Monday. Kind of like the old NASCAR,
win on Sunday, sell on Monday mantra that kind of drove that whole movement early on, right?
Yes. So it's really been an eye-opener that we have to look at other segments of our business, other segments of the market, whether that is agricultural, because our ignition company does a tremendous amount of business in the ag world.
Wow.
Well, lo and behold, Justin Bond contacted us here a couple years ago, and he was having a fuel problem with his silage baggers. So he builds a bagger that basically bags silage. And when they designed the fuel system, I don't think they took into consideration that you might be on two different elevations. So all the fuel was running away from the pickup. So he got hold of us, and we ended up building a solution for that, which is what we're known for. You know, we were a fuel system company that solved problems. So then it's like, hey, we can build tractor parts. Don't tell anybody, but we can build tractor parts. So expanding our horizons into other parts of the world for business is probably what we've learned the most from our other companies. You know, we always viewed ourselves as a world-class company, and bringing these other companies in under our umbrella now, we're going to elevate them up to our standard. You know, they're commodities. Exhaust obviously is a commodity. Ignition is a commodity. But when you start creating new, innovative, creative product, you're less of a commodity and more of a leader. And that's the direction we want to go.
And that's kind of been the song and dance at Aeromotive since the day one, was to lead, right? To be innovators, and you guys have fought that battle, right? Being copied, having products replicated, all those different things. But I'm curious, are you guys with the history and the heritage that you have at Aeromotive in the racing world, are you able to bring some of that, like, hey, y'all maybe understand these big quantities or volumes or maybe some of these other industries, but we can bring some racing heritage, because that has been, I think that's something that's near and dear the heart of racers, is to know these brands, even when they ultimately change hands. And honestly, a lot of businesses are started with an exit in mind. So we can't like turn our nose up when this happens, right? Because it's a part of the modern world. These roll-ups and acquisitions and mergers and everything like that, that's a part of existence at this point in time. And I think it's important for racers to know that these brands, while that may happen, that heritage is still alive, and we still look to, I'm saying we, like speaking on behalf of you, I don't mean to, but it's right, that heritage is still alive, solving the problems of racers and then using the lessons learned on the racetrack, which are the toughest environment that exists, to create these products for other industries. Is that, I mean, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, Jeff, but that's kind of how it feels from the outside looking in.
And then that's what we want to do. When you build a Me Too type product, you end up competing to the basement price wise. When you build a product and you're the first one to market with a solution, you know, we never tried to make $1 million on a part, but we thought that we needed to get reimbursed for our engineering expense, for the time it took us to develop this product. So we were never an inexpensive brand. We've viewed ourselves as a premium brand, and premium brands should come up with premium solutions for our consumer base. And that's what we did. We have got some product that's going to be out at SEMA that, you know, we've been busting our backsides on for the last 6 or 8 months to make sure that we have it ready for all of our brands, that I think will really show the direction that our other brands are following us. And we are, you know, dragging them kicking and screaming, you know, to elevate their game. You know, better quality, more of a racing heritage. But still, we're not going to forget our roots, because our roots are in, you know, ignition and exhaust, and that is product for the masses. But it doesn't mean you can't have a good, better, best of your product line. You know, we're rolling out a whole bunch of stainless steel headers. I mean, who has a big block Chevrolet that needs a 2 1/8 inch pipe for a street car that doesn't want a stainless steel set of headers that's less than, you know, $1,800? We see that there's a market there for that. You know,
100%.
And we want to capitalize on that. You know, JBA headers probably has more EO numbers than any other header manufacturer out there. And you know, coming from the fuel system side, you know, CARB and EO and the EPA, heck, we didn't pay any attention to that. Well, when you get in the exhaust business, holy cow, do you have to pay attention to that? So we're very proud that we build a tremendous amount of late model shorty headers that have EO numbers for them. You know, here in the Midwest, we don't get We have no smog. We have no nothing. I mean, it's like, okay, it's got 4 wheels and tires and it rolled up here. So you're
Past
good to go.
inspection. Yeah. Good to go.
Yes. But in other parts of the country, the EO numbers are a very important part. And if we as manufacturers don't continue to push that bar to get these EO numbers, our industry starts to die, because a 2010 Chevrolet truck is now affordable to play with, but it's still in lots of parts of the United States falls under the scrutiny of CARB or of, the EPA. So if we don't provide product that is, pollution compliant, we're letting our industry die, and then that's something we don't want to do. Obviously, we build everything for an internal combustion engine. So the electric thing really doesn't excite me, but the hydrogen deal excites the heck out of me, because it saves everybody's job that builds crankshafts and pistons and blocks and,
Right.
and exhaust. So I think that's a viable direction to go. We are looking, because we have an ignition company and we have Taylor Cable, which is 100 years old this year.
Wow.
We are looking at some electric car stuff, but we'll stick to our roots.
Do you feel like, I don't mean to get us in trouble here, but it is an interesting topic, and it's something it's top of mind right now, this electric car movement. And I'll just share like a personal anecdote, like just this week, literally, locally outside of DFW, there were rolling blackouts because of grid issues and electrical infrastructure issues. And it just kind of, to me, furthers the point that I appreciate the excitement and enthusiasm around this EV movement, but I do think that it's a little premature, because you got the CEO of Ford publicly acknowledging that he drove one of their electric trucks a few hundred miles, and it was a very laborsome experience, charging for 40 minutes here to only get a little bit of a increase on the battery. That whole situation, like, again, I'm a gadget guy. I love tech. I pay attention to all those things, and it is exciting. But I do think we're like getting the cart ahead of the horse here a little bit. I mean, when I see some of these major brands like putting electric engines in Challengers and Chargers and 55, I don't know. We're not there yet. I think that it's a little bit of a square peg, round hole situation, especially on the high performance side. I mean, God bless it. They're consistent. I mean, we see guys bracket racing Teslas with considerable success. But I'm not sure how I feel about it personally.
Our motto is we want everybody to have a toy and go fast. How
Great
you
motto.
decide to make that go fast, we will support you. We're a little slower than maybe some to the electric side, but I'm not going to alienate you.
Yeah.
What's very interesting is we have executives that are on the East Coast, part of our private equity. We have them on the West Coast, and they see a lot more electric cars than, here in Kansas City. And it's like, I try and explain to them, it's like, you leave Kansas City, once you get to the other side of Topeka, there's not a whole lot until you get to Denver. And I said, I don't know that Farmer Joe is going to let you plug into his washer and dryer hookup to charge your electric car. So yes, the infrastructure is not here in the Midwest, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be paying attention to it, and we are. The
Fair.
exciting thing is in the last omnibus bill that was passed through Congress, there are 7 hydrogen plants in that bill. Most people don't know that every Walmart distribution center has a hydrogen plant inside of it, because all the forklifts run on hydrogen. You can start a hydrogen car in your kitchen, shut all the doors, and you don't die in 15 minutes because there is no pollutant coming out of the tailpipe. So we've done a poor job of telling the world that hydrogen is a viable alternative, probably because we don't have enough people invested in it yet that have a platform to be able to promote it. But Mike Copeland at Arrington, he's got a truck that he raced on the Optima Streetcar Challenge, road racing it. I mean, he has a working prototype, and it's definitely a direction, that I think we need to go in our industry. But however you want to go fast, whether it's on water, whether it's on land, whether it's in the sky, whether it's electric, whether it's hydrogen, I don't even care if it's a hydrogen peroxide rocket.
Which we've seen. They exist. Yeah.
Yeah, we want to support you. So That's kind of our motto.
I think that's, and you know what, that open-mindedness, I think, is really what will propel our sport forward. I mean, we see it on the hardcore drag racing side. Obviously, that's, the sport has been somewhat, I don't know what the word is. We have caged ourselves up by being unwilling to collaborate, or being unwilling to kind of see someone else's point of view, or another sanction or series, or whatever the case may be. And I mean, I think we're kind of seeing it in some different areas where, hey, if we can get everybody to at least attempt to work together, or have some open-mindedness and consider some other solutions, we can do some really big things. It's not like this isn't a group of people that are resourced and extremely intelligent. I mean, this is a significantly, impactful and innovative group of people. We can solve whatever problem I think comes the racing community's way. So now it's a very interesting thing. You talk about the EV thing and hydrogen, and I didn't even consider talking about that with you, and I may want to dive into that a little further because it's interesting. But what are, like, looking at it from a hardcore racing perspective, maybe not everybody knows, but you've been in dirt track racing, you've been involved in all sorts of different motorsports, you were hands-on with a no prep team for a long time. What gets you excited at this point in time when you look around at the drag racing space? What are some things that you're excited about? I mean, what's your take on the no prep movement? Did you ever expect it to reach the point that it is, or maintain this level of significance?
I thought they definitely had a chance with the platform of the television show. They had the ability to reach so many people and show them that there were other forms of drag racing. NHRA, and even back in the day, IHRA, did a great job of promoting themselves. And for the longest time, that was all anybody knew about drag racing. I think where the two big sanctioning bodies got lost was they were all about promoting themselves and not promoting the participants. The Discovery Channel obviously promotes the participants, and the way they act and their personalities is what comes out in that television show. We need more of that. I mean, the Dale Earnhardts of the world that would speak their minds. We need that. And granted, the no prep guys are not dealing with multi-million-dollar sponsors that they have to keep happy, but they do have a TV show that they have to be happy, so they still have to be a little bit careful of what they say. But no, I would have never guessed that you would have a bunch of guys in Oklahoma that street raced, that this would eventually evolve into a 12 or 14 race schedule across the country that was pretty good at packing the grandstands. Or that people would be watching street racing on TV. And we had quite the dilemma. Steve Matusik was a drag racing purist, and he was not big on that perception of street racing. Obviously, with 3 daughters that were growing up, he didn't want them out there doing dumb things on the street. So we were very slow to really get involved with those guys. At that time, as it was coming up, I wasn't working here. I had left here and gone to another company and was kind of not doing anything for a while. And Larry Larson ended up calling me and saying, hey, I need help. Will you come racing with me? So we raced all over the world, and it was a great experience. And I met a lot of people and a lot of fans. And it seems to have rejuvenated some of the drag racing. I have a lot of friends that now are really into this no prep or street racing or highway racing, airport racing, anything that seems to be a little edgy. Everybody seems to be into that. It also has introduced a younger crowd, and we needed that younger crowd. We need younger participants. The downside of all of this is it's all extremely expensive, so it's very hard for a 25-year-old that just, graduated from college or just got his first real life professional job to be able to participate in this. But you are seeing a lot younger crowd, in my opinion, than you do at maybe an NHRA national event. You look at the super gas competitors, and it seems like there's more participants closer to my age than closer to, my stepkid's age. So I think that the whole no prep scene rejuvenated. If nothing else, the bantering back and forth between the Stevie Jacksons and the no prep guys, and you won't let me in because I'm too good. Hey, that's good for both. What Stevie does and for what the no prep guys do.
I couldn't agree more. Like, part of me actually, I truly agree. I've said it many times on this program and various other platforms that I think anybody that really wants to beat on the No Prep Kings situation or Street Outlaws, it's rooted in jealousy. I mean, that's really what it is. They've done a fantastic job of building that brand, building their characters, building their stars. And we talk about this a lot internally, that if you're an aspiring professional drag racer, if you're hoping to one day earn your living racing, right now, I don't know that there is a better platform or a greater opportunity that exists in drag racing than No Prep Kings. I mean, as far as like having a pathway to having your race program at least support itself, either through merchandise sales or sponsorships or direct compensation from the sanctioning body or the production company, it's changed the landscape in drag racing dramatically. I mean, that reality doesn't exist in the NHRA. There are very, very few teams over there, a handful. I mean, you can count them on one hand, that generate enough sponsorship revenue and sell enough merchandise and are able to generate enough revenue overall that they can support their program and be profitable. But that's a very limited. Most of it are guys that are losing their hind end chasing the drag racing dream, which thank God for that. But I do think that, to me, I think the Street Outlaws, No Prep King situation has maybe opened some folks' eyes as to what is the possibilities that exist in this space. Because to your point, car culture, in my opinion, despite the issues, there's always going to be issues. If it's not EVs, it was the gas crisis in the 70s. There's always going to be something, right? But car culture is alive and well. I mean, I feel like racing has more mainstream mojo right now than at any point in my life, right? And I'm getting older, so I've seen a little bit now, and I don't know that racing and car culture has ever been more fashionable than it is right now. And so much of that, at least in drag racing, is due entirely to the Street Outlaws and No Prep Kings. And I think that if you deny that, you're not paying attention, because you use the water cooler kind of as a barometer. If you run into any repair shop or any auto parts store in the country right now, I promise you that they're going to be talking about Murder Nova. They're going to be talking about Daddy Dave and Chuck and all these Ryan Martin and all these guys that exist in that space, right? Because they've turned these guys into household names and superstars, for that matter. And it's been a masterclass in marketing, in my opinion. And I think a lot of us could learn from it. But it's exciting for me. I mean, personally, I'm even hearing it from manufacturers, Jeff. This is surprising to me. I've had a lot of manufacturers tell me that No Prep Kings, because of the kind of relatively loose rule structure, they're able to try some stuff. They're able to roll out some new products and do some things that in more regulated forms of racing they would never be able to get away with. It's kind of a cool thing.
The big thing for us is, we've given away a lot of product over the years, and in a lot of sanctioning bodies, you had a decal on the car, and of course the person that you were working with, whether it was a new design, a new spec, a new something, they were very secretive of it, and they didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to promote your product because maybe your product's making them better than the guy next to them. But the No Prep Kings guys, were so excited about a manufacturer wanting to pay attention to them. It's like, okay, I'm going to send you 2 t-shirts, man. Can one of the filming nights, can you wear one of these dang t-shirts? And then it was like, okay, we're going to run No Prep Kings. And they would send out an email to all of the people that help them with product. And it's like, hey, at this race, I'm wearing your guys' apparel. I need 5 of these, 2 of these, blah, blah, blah. It's like, all right, these guys are getting it. They now understand that we are a partnership with them, and they're giving back to us. And that's probably the most exciting part of this, that these guys are now seeing the business side of it. And they do know that it's a TV show first and foremost. My support of what they do is 100% because of the 1.5 million people they reach, every Monday. I'm introducing a multitude of brands to people that may not ever buy my product, may not even care about my product. But if 5% of them are car people and they keep seeing Aeromotive or they keep seeing JBA and it's their favorite driver that's using that product, I can't afford to have John Force have Aeromotive down his fire suit. But damn, this other deal's pretty cheap for the amount of people that you reach. So it's been wonderful for our business.
And it does seem to be, there are more enthusiasts there than I think people realize. Like, having gone to several of those events, when you pull into the parking lot, and if it's not late model performance cars, it's jacked up trucks or low rider trucks or Jeeps. I mean, there's no doubt it's a group of people that, at least, even if they're not, gearheads rebuilding a turbo 400 in their garage at home, they care about their car, and they have a relationship with their car, and it means something to them. And they, at the bare minimum, maybe keep it clean, or, regularly maintenance it, or choose premium product, air filters, fuel filters, and that type of thing, in my opinion, has value. And if you look at what that whole scene represents for tracks, holy moly, right? I mean, in being a part of the Midwest, you've seen the tracks come and you've seen the tracks go. We just lost, it sounds like, Topeka. I mean, what a situation. Now, thank God we've got a new track being built. But at the same time, I mean, if you start to think about KCIR has gone away, which was such an iconic facility in our neck of the woods, and now Topeka, tracks need more things that they can bring in that is going to sell a ticket and help them make money. I don't know that anything could have maybe saved the situation in Topeka, but I look at some of the tracks that are able to bring in a show like the No Prep Kings that doesn't require, parking for 500 rigs or whatever, like a typical NHRA race. It's been a difference maker for the industry on the event and promotion side and track ownership side in a huge way.
Yes. Yeah. And we're quick to chastise track owners for selling their property. I don't know how hard you have to work at a decent sized drag strip to actually make money, but I think you got to work pretty damn hard, and you got to put up with an awful lot of stuff. And if you've had this property for 10 or 15 years and, maybe you owe $1 million left on it, and somebody wants to come in and develop it and offer you $20 million for that property, man, I get it. I would bail in a heartbeat too, and unfortunately there's very few people like the Vandermeer family that are willing to take the money that they're going to get from, closing their track and selling it and investing it in another track, especially this day and age. The Vandermeers will be successful. Everything they've ever touched, they've been successful at. So I get it. But, Chris Payne battling with the state and the city that has never collected any property tax on that piece of property because the city owned it, for them to come up with, a value of that racetrack that was so obscene, it's politics, and it sucks because I remember going to the very first race there. I didn't go to the very last race there, if that is the last race, but the city of Topeka will miss that racetrack because there really isn't too many reasons to go to Topeka besides that racetrack, I
hate to say, that was the only reason I ever went. And it's actually a cool little town, it's a cool part of the country. It's great human beings, great people everywhere. I love the Midwest. As our buddy Matusik used to call it, God's country, right? It's a great part of the world. And that's one of the things that I have been encouraging promoters to do, and we've been adopting this ourselves, is you have to find ways to really ingratiate yourself to that local community, like make connections, make friends with those people, invite them out. That's something that I've seen done masterfully here in DFW, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Billy Meyer, his daughter Christy Meyer, the team down here at the Texas Motorplex, they have done a masterful job of building bridges with those local politicians and making friends. You can't go to a big happening at the Motorplex and not see a politician there, somebody from the Dallas community, and that's, to me, seems smart, right? And that's also smart on the local politicians' side, because they understand the revenue that a facility like that drives. Hotels, restaurants, bars, it's gas. It's, I can't imagine the impact that the NHRA national event has had on Topeka over the course of 35 years. It's got to be significant.
Yeah, and you talked about the loss of KCIR. I was born and raised here, so I watched many of my friends that were in the machine shop business and the speed shop business go out of town or go out of business because of the loss of KCIR. So, it wasn't a huge economic impact. It didn't bring in great big huge shows, but there was 3 or 4 or 5 other businesses, small businesses that may have employed 2 or 3 people that were lost because people quit racing. They sold their stuff. They didn't want to drive to Topeka or Mocan, so having a drag strip in a major metropolitan area makes a tremendous amount of sense. I don't know how anybody in Long Island, New York, that area, that's a long drive to go bracket racing. I mean, to
I mean,
find a racetrack that bracket races, you know, and with the density of population you have there, that, I mean, there used to be 25 or 30 speed shops in the New York metropolitan area, Long Island area. There might be 2 now, you know, and that's sad. And it continues to constrict our business. And when people aren't out doing what they do with cars, other people aren't seeing them do what they're doing with cars. You know, part of my education into cars was I had 2 or 3 neighbors that were into cars.
right.
As a little guy, you know, my dad was into cars, but we didn't have a hot rod, but the neighbor did. Well, guess where I was every Saturday morning when he was out changing the oil? I was over there, you know, screwing things up and making a mess, you know, but that's what got me into cars. Well, those people don't exist anymore, or they're getting so few and far between that I don't know how to create the snowball to get the kids back into it.
It really is an I found this with my own son. My son turned, he actually got his driver's permit last week, and he's 15 and a half. And it's funny because admittedly, I mean, I'm like, you know, Mr. Drag Racing. I love this stuff. And I drag him to the races as often as humanly possible. But he doesn't have, you know, similar to me. I grew up at the racetrack. I mean, I didn't have a choice to like it because I was going to learn to like it if I didn't like it, because we were going racing every weekend that we could go racing. And that was my introduction to the sport. And it's funny because I feel like my son, Max, his introduction to the sport has been through video gaming. Like, and that's crazy to say out loud, but I don't know that it's all bad, right? Because the things change, and his pathway to being interested in racing has happened really on the heels of that damn Netflix documentary about Formula One racing. I can't even think of what it's called, Drive to Survive or whatever. I watched the first series, and I told him, I said, hey man, I think you'd really enjoy this. And he watched it, and now he's watched every season. He's beat every video game. He's got like a gaming simulator in his bedroom, and with a racing simulator deal, and he lives for it. And it's funny because it's taken that to kind of break through to him, and that has been his pathway to being interested in racing at all, or cars. Because now all of a sudden we're talking about engines, we're talking about turbos, we're talking about lap times, we're talking about tire compounds. He's asking me, he's a smart kid too, so he's a numbers guy. So on the drag racing side, he likes talking about incrementals, and he likes talking about what the cars weigh and all these different things. And to me, it's a little bit longer of a game, Jeff, right? But I will turn him in to a car guy. It's just his pathway there is gonna be a little bit different than mine was. But I think I mean, it's still cool because when we go drive around, or we go for dinner, or go for lunch on a Sunday or something, I mean, he's got an eye for the Porsches, and he's got an eye for seeing if, oh, there's a Ferrari, or oh, there's a ZL1, or oh, there's a Z06 Corvette. I mean, he's paying attention, and it's taken a little bit longer than it took, like with me, because I knew the firing order on a big block Chevy when I was like 3, you know, but it's like the process is just a little different, but I'm going to get him there. And I think if we're open-minded to finding a way to get these kids to at least pay attention to it, hopefully we can get the hook in them somewhere along the way. The process just changed. I mean, I think Street Outlaws, again, the stuff's on TV. I mean, I remember when we put the Street Outlaws, the original 405 cast, I mean, Big Chief, Daddy Dave, Farm Truck and Agent on the cover of Drag Illustrated. And many of our customers, many of our readers are, much like you referenced Steve Matusik as being, purists. And boy, oh boy, did we take a beating for it. I mean, it was a real situation. I mean, I was getting letters, all sorts of emails, messages on social media, and I had no idea. Well, it was kind of a proud moment because I'm like, wow, people really pay attention to this. Like, people really care who's on the cover of that dang thing, or they wouldn't be so up in arms. But my argument was always, I don't care if they're doing burnouts on the moon. I don't care if they're doing burnouts on primetime TV talking about drag racing. There is no way you can tell me this is bad. No, you can't. I won't hear it. I can't hear it. It's good. It's very good.
You know, and talking about your son, the next step is we have to get him into a car, because that is the one thing that all these video games can't do.
Yeah.
And the noise and the G-force and what he understands about racing from his games will solidify that when he gets his first $2,000 in his pocket, he's going to be looking for either some way to modify the car that he has, or go find some sort of racing car. You're talking about purists, you know, I had an interesting conversation with Steve when he finally started embracing the street outlaws. I said, you're starting to come around. I said, you're not quite as big a purist as you were. I said, next thing you know, you're going to have an automatic in that Pro Mod car. Sure as heck, a year later, he's letting go of a button instead of letting the clutch out. So we have to evolve, and I'm as big a clutch guy as anybody.
Same.
But a clutch and a turbo are really not good friends. And the way Pro Mods are ran, you don't have time to service a clutch between rounds. You're on a clock to be ready for the next round. So I get it. But yeah, it was just funny that all of a sudden we had this, okay, maybe this is a good avenue to introduce our brand to other people. And then all of a sudden he's got a slush box in the car, and it's like, wow, you're going to retire before long.
Right. I mean, it is. I think back to whenever I first laid eyes on a Pro Mod. Obviously, it was all Lenco transmissions and clutches. Yeah. And I remember actually the first time I ever saw a Pro Mod car with an automatic in it. And it was in 2005. It was Jason, gosh darn it, I'm going to draw a blank on his last name. But it was a cone converter 63 Corvette, and Jason Hamstra from Indiana. And they were one of the first guys to go give it a go. And it was such a foreign notion. I mean, people looked at them like they had three heads. It was this huge talking point. And fast forward to today, less than 20 years later, I mean, there's probably a handful of Pro Mod cars with clutches in them on the planet Earth right now.
Well, and I always looked at him as, that guy's got an automatic. It's not a real Pro Mod.
Right. It's a top sportsman car.
Yeah. And, hanging around Larry in his Chevy 2, that thing's got a Lenco turbo street car. It's like, dang, if this, knucklehead from the middle of Missouri can make this streetcar thing worth with a Lenco and a turbo, these guys are way smarter than he is. That they ought to be able to figure it out. But the evolution of our industry, just like we were talking about alternative fuels, we have to be ready to adapt. We have to be open-minded. I look at a lot of the companies that are getting sold here over the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, and they sold not to get out because they were going to make a ton of money. They sold out of desperation. And I think a lot of that desperation was caused by not recognizing that the industry was changing, that our customer base was changing, that the product that our customers needed was changing. And you got to stay on top of that. And the way you stay on top of it is to be at events. And that's something that we haven't done for the last 3 years. COVID obviously killed our travel schedule. And then during COVID, to be perfectly honest with you, we didn't have to do anything to have record sales. We just had to be able to build and ship product. Well, now we're getting back out to the racetrack. We're supporting that grassroots racer again. We're doing some contingency stuff. The feedback that we get from our customers is how we come up with 90% of our new product. And we have a tech department. I have 6 guys on the tech lines just for Aeromotive and Waterman. And the amount of things we learn by using 2 ears and only 1 mouth and listening to our customer base is incredible. It makes our customers is the reason we're as good as what we think we are at doing what we do, and that's a testament to our industry. I don't know too many industries that people are this passionate, that are this well-minded, that if, they call us up and said, well, if you did this, this, and this product would work better and I'd be able to use it on these 12 more applications. I got a whole engineering staff that didn't come up with that. Now, how the heck did you do,
Right. I mean, and it's funny because that's a great point that I don't think we've ever discussed, because I'm not going to call AT&T up and tell them that I was laying awake last night thinking about how we could reroute fiber into our neighborhood and serve more customers. Right. I'm never going to, I don't care. But that's what comes from the passion, the uniquely passionate people that exist in this industry, that they're laying awake at night trying to solve a problem for Aeromotive.
Absolutely.
Right, like you said, and you've got engineers that couldn't figure it out, and a lot of times that's no knock on them, but they've got priorities and they've got projects they're working on, and this guy's been fighting this battle for the last several weeks at the racetrack, and it's cost him a couple of rounds or whatever, and now he's determined to turn over every stone trying to solve that problem and ultimately ring your phone and maybe change the course of a product. It's kind of incredible.
When I'm out traveling and visiting customers or at events, I still enjoy sitting in the booth at an event and listening to the problems that we have with our product, the people that are just, over the moon at how well our product worked, just like we said it was going to be. But when I go and visit a customer and I tell the 3 guys that are on the front counter, hey, here's my business card. If somebody comes in multiple times asking for the same type of product or needing the same type of solutions, shoot me an email. It may be something we want to work on and can work on. Now, if it has something to do with drivetrain or something that it's not our core competency, right, that's probably not our deal. But I don't care whether it's moving fuel, moving water, moving oil. We look at anything and everything between Waterman and Aeromotive. And now that we have an ignition company, a spark plug wire company, and exhaust companies, it just opens us up that much more to being able to solve more problems for more people based on the product that we have. And we're in acquisition mode. We're going to buy some more companies. So we're going to continue to grow this. That's what we have to do. Our private equity has challenged us to grow the business to a point where they can sell it and make money. It's the nature of the beast, and I need to stick around for 7 or 8 more years. So I'm going to make it through a couple more of these purchases, and we will continue to hopefully buy companies and make them better so that we provide better products and services for the racer, the enthusiast, the car show guy. We do stuff for unmanned aerial drones that the Navy shoots down over the Pacific Ocean. We don't brag about it. We don't tell a lot of people about it, but that's the type of stuff. People come to us with a problem. Hey, we can solve it, and that's what we did for that segment of the market. None of us have a whole lot of love for that type of product. It makes us a lot of money, and I would entertain more of it.
Right.
But everybody that works in this building is a car guy or girl. And we have a diverse group. Some of them drift. I don't understand drifting. I may not ever understand drifting.
Right.
But
I struggle with it myself.
It takes power to do it. Well, that's what we sell is power. We sell entertainment. We have a new CEO that came from outside the industry, and he's like, well, what exactly do we sell? And I said, we sell entertainment. He looked at me like I had 12 heads. He's like, entertainment? What are you talking about? I said, hey, when you hop in a car and it makes 1,000 horsepower and you step on the gas pedal, that's entertaining.
Big time entertaining. Matter of fact, few things replicate that experience.
Yeah. Going to space with Richard Branson, maybe, but I don't know that we can afford to do that. So it really made sense to him and resonated to him that, yes, we manufacture automobile parts, airplane parts, whatever parts, but everything goes to someone that is wanting to be entertained.
Yeah. Thrill seekers. And this is, and if you think about it if you look at it through the lens of the other thrills that are out there, it's hard to replicate that without going to space or having access to a plane or jumping out a plane. That's a very difficult thing for the guys that have, stomped on, 1,000 horsepower or several thousand horsepower hot rod. That is, it's a religious experience. And it's funny because my son, I've had my fair share of big power street cars, and he's sensed that tickle in his tummy where it's like, I want a car like this. I want something that does this. And I want to bring that up and kind of some of our, we got to wrap this thing up. Again, Jeff, thank you. I know you guys are super busy. You got a lot going on right now. So I appreciate always your candor. That's the coolest part of this thing is we're able to have real conversations that aren't completely scripted. But before I let you go, you mentioned something, 1,000 horsepower. I remember when I first was kind of getting into the high performance street car scene, my dad, hardcore drag racer, could care less about having a hopped up street car. He wanted a pro stock car with a 500-inch motor and dual dominators and link. I was always more of a street car guy. I wanted to be able to drive it to school or cruise to Sonic and go hang out in a parking lot with all my buddies and maybe, go race on the weekends or go out to a street car deal. But times have changed big time. The days 1,000 horsepower used to be, magazine covers and the thing of legend. Now it's not at all unusual to see something make 1,500, 2,000 horsepower. Everybody's got 1,000 horsepower street car. Can you just talk about what do you think has, because fueling those cars has really been a huge part of the issue, is that there were other parts available, but fueling them to those power levels consistently and reliably has been an issue. Are you blown away with what we see driving around on the street at this point in time?
I'm blown away that you can go to the junkyard and grab a Coyote motor or grab an LS, buy a good fuel system, buy a turbo, maybe do a little bit of valve train upgrade, put it on E85, and you won't make 1,500 horsepower for 4 or 5 years, but you'll make it for quite a while. And it allows you to be able to have a drag and drive car that is fairly docile, because the motor, doesn't have 13-to-1 compression like it had to have way back in our day. You don't have to have a humongous roller cam that eats valve springs every 5 passes. So the ability to do that, I think came with the OEs building better parts. I hate to give the government really any credit, but the mandate of having ethanol into our fuels, as much as at the beginning I hated it because we weren't ready for it, and you have to change quite a bit of stuff to be able to be happy with E. But we decided, and I don't remember what year it was, 4 or 5 years ago at SEMA, we were going to roll out a 5-gallon a minute electric pump that would be able to support, 90 to 100 PSI and make, over 1,000 horsepower pretty easy on a turbocharged EFI application. So we take it to SEMA, and SEMA is not always known for having all the hot rodders there. So we weren't sure what kind of a reception we would get, but we were blown away. And the first thing out of somebody's mouth was, "Do you got a bigger one?" And we're like, "Holy crap, 5 gallons a minute's pretty big." So we tasked the engineering group with coming up with a 10-gallon a minute pump for PRI, which was only 2 months away. And a pretty cool story. Electric motor is where most of the technology is, and finding an electric motor that can provide the RPM and the torque to be able to flow that much fuel without consuming 200 amps of battery was where we were struggling. And one of our engineers just happened to have an RC magazine sitting in front of him. And he's like, "I wonder if one of these radio controlled helicopter motors would work to be able to build a prototype to take to PRI and show it off. And then, we could gauge how many of these we thought we could sell. And then we could go to an electric motor manufacturer and spend the $100,000 worth of tooling and technology to get our own motor." So we actually, in our first 10-gallon a minute pump that we had at PRI, had a radio controlled helicopter motor, and it worked.
Joke.
It worked wonders. We actually, our first run of production had radio controlled helicopter motors in it, and then the challenge was, okay, these kids want to street drive this, so I need to be able to slow that pump down. So we have a company here in town called Castle Creations, and they do most of the speed controllers for the radio controlled world. So we went to them, and they're like, "Well, how many of these are you going to buy if we go to all the trouble to design it?" It's like, "Well, we think we can sell, a couple hundred of these pumps a year." And they're like, "Okay, our largest customer buys $2.2 million or 2.2 million controllers from us. We're really not interested in talking to you." But we kept begging and kept begging, and they built us a controller for these pumps that we use a 0 to 5 volt signal for, and we basically pull it off the TPS. So as you're pushing down on the gas pedal, it speeds the pump up. When you let off the gas pedal, it slows the pump down so that you're not recirculating the fuel through your gas tank, 5 times a minute, heating that fuel up and making the car not drivable in hot conditions. And the drag and drive world really embraced that product and that technology. And, that segment of our business, we never thought we would sell thousands of these pumps. But it's just a testament to, if you build it, they will build something bigger. So continue to innovate, continue to create, continue to take chances. I mean, any product that we come out with is always there's always a chance it's going to flop. We hope not, obviously, because we have a lot of time and money invested in the design of the product. We're currently working on a 15-gallon a minute electric pump. We just can't seem to find electric motor technology that will allow us to get there with today's battery. It'll be here in a couple years probably, and we hope to be able to do a 15-gallon a minute and a 20-gallon a minute pump for the guy that wants to run methanol. If we can do a 20-gallon a minute pump, we can support 4,000 horsepower on methanol, and you can drive it on the street.
I mean, that to me, thinking about that is, to even think about it being on the radar, Jeff, is crazy. 2 or 3 years from now, I mean, in terms of product development, that's nothing, right? I mean, that's not unheard of at all. So yeah, the variable. So there is a plan beyond the 5-gallon, 10-gallon a minute variable pump. And to see that, so that technology, how much does the drag and drive community, because they're spurring some of that, right? I mean, I think that may be the hottest thing happening in drag racing today. And I think I remember having this conversation with Alex Taylor's father, Dennis. Alex Taylor, I'm sure you're familiar with Alex. She's
Sure.
really exploding as a star in our space. But his dad, we were just talking about drag racing compared to the drag and drive community, and it was crazy to hear him talk about he has like no interest in it. Like he goes, man, I can't imagine just drag racing. Like just loading all of our stuff up and trailering it to a track somewhere and making 4 or 5 passes. Like that doesn't excite me at all. And I think, and our producer here, JT, and I have talked about this a lot, going back to your comment about entertainment. If you start to think about how much entertainment you're getting in a drag car, and I mean, listen, I'm the ultimate drag racing fan, but it is fairly limited, right? I mean, it's 5, 6, 7, 10 seconds at a time. Whereas in this drag and drive environment that exists right now, you can go get your wide open thrill, but you can also make use of this thing you've spent all this time and money on and put it up and down the roads and pull into parking lots and get ice cream. It's like the ultimate multi-purpose hot rod, right? The drag and drive community has fostered that.
Yeah, and they are definitely the ones spurring us to come up with product that is better, can support more horsepower, but still feasible to run on the street. We're looking at getting into moving water now in also fuel and probably oil. So we've done a lot of research and development with some of these drag and drive guys, whether it was on a water pump, whether it was on a fuel pump. Now, I did Rocky Mountain Race Week multiple times with Larry, and I've been both the Chevy 2 and the truck. And to think that you're driving down a mountain with a trailer behind you, and you have electric brakes, you have electric trailer brakes, thank God, in something that has the capability of making 4,000 horsepower, not while we're driving it on the street, but in 30 minutes we can make that kind of power, is mind-boggling. Everybody talks about all the drag and drives that they got going now. Most of them are fairly short because they're in major metropolitan areas, so the racetracks are real close. You want to do something that's tough, go to Colorado in August. And, go from Bandimere down to Pueblo where you're in a desert, and then go from Pueblo to Great Bend, Kansas. Larry and I made that run. We left at like 3:00 in the morning to beat the heat. And we were going through Scott City, Kansas, and it was already like 102 degrees. And the truck has great ventilation. It's very docile, but it has 2 turbochargers that are on the other side of a steel firewall from your feet. So we would have to pull over about every 45 minutes for me and Larry to somehow figure out how to cool ourselves off. Truck's fine. It's 200 degrees, happy as a clam. Larry and I are back there dying. I mean, they built an air conditioning system out of a cooler and fans, and the ice would melt in about 2 seconds. So you'd have 2 seconds worth of enjoyment. But, we just did Roadkill Nights up in Detroit. First time we'd experienced that. We were a sponsor. We were the official fuel pump of Roadkill Nights. And there were so many drag and drive guys there that were racing on Woodward Avenue. And it was just cool to see these guys doing both. They kind of look at Roadkill Nights as not necessarily a drag and drive event, but it's very welcoming to the drag and drive community. So, it was neat to see a lot of people there. But the great thing about a drag and drive car is you have the best of both worlds. You have a drag car, and then you have something you can cruise down to Sonic and get you a 44-ouncer on a Saturday and, stroke your ego to all the people that see you. It's really a neat deal. So I think, what Tom Bailey's doing, what the guys at Midwest Drags is doing, what Matt Frost does for Rocky Mountain Race Week, what the Motor Trend Group does for Hot Rod Drag Week, the originator, the very first drag week started at KCIR. I was there. I worked at Aeromotive. I was there. And that's kind of how the relationship started with Larry Larson. That's what he wanted to do. And he's like, called.
Boy, did he do it.
Yeah. He called Matusik and said, I need something I can drive on. And he had a blower on the car at the time, so it's like, Steve's like, well, here's a couple A1000s. Heck, I don't know how to tell you to do it, but you can figure it out. Here's the pump, which is so unlike us because we like to come up with the solution. So for Larry to win it, 5 years in a row, it was a true testament to him, but we rode his coattails in that, hey, our fuel system survived this. Tom Bailey, the first car to run in the 5s during drag week, that's an Aeromotive fuel system. Larry was an Aeromotive fuel system, the first 5-second pass, for a street car. And then, we lost that first round at Las Vegas When he went in the 5s, we threw mufflers on it, flipped it over to gas, threw Anderson Dick in it, and Anderson, Dick, and Larry went driving around Las Vegas with it. So to me, that's just so cool. And people all freak out because they're like, how can you drive something down the road that makes 4,000 horsepower? Well, it only makes 4,000 horsepower when it's wide open.
Right. Yeah, it's in the turbocharger technology, camshaft technology. I mean, we really got to tip our cap to like the industry, because everything. Last thing I wanted to talk about, and this is something I think you and I talked about this 100 years ago at MPMC in Los Angeles, in Orange County. How much has the expectations of your customers changed? Because that's like in this Amazon world we live in this Apple technology world we live in, everybody, I mean, things are nice. Everything's free return. You know what I mean? Like the expectation of the average customer are through the roof. I mean, I expect to buy something from Amazon, have it delivered in 4 minutes. And if I don't like it, then take it back, you know, I mean, the next day. I mean, we expect a lot. How has that impacted the automotive aftermarket?
We have had to make much better product. Not that we didn't make good product before, but I can remember, you know, I'm old enough to remember we would, you know, you'd buy something automotive related, we'll say an MSD box, and you'd wire it all up and the car would start and you're like, holy crap, it works. You know, today's day and age, not only does it have to work, it has to feed you, entertain you, supply you with water. You know, the expectation from the consumer is so much higher, but that's good. I mean, they're demanding that from us, and it's making us better manufacturers. You know, it's making sure that when we come up with a new fuel pump, if it's going to be a street driven fuel pump, we will test that to failure. And then we will test another one to failure to make sure that the first one wasn't a fluke and that it is going to last X amount of hours. You know, we run anything that is going to be street related for a minimum of 2,000 hours just to qualify the parts, and then we will run to failure. 2,000 hours is the equivalent of about 100,000 miles. So when we run things to failure, they may fail at 4,000 hours, 5,000 hours. So we want to build a great product. From the consumer looking into Aeromotive to buy product, we had always been a distributor of product that went to other people to sell. So having everything on the shelf all the time was not critical. Most customers, being speed shops, knew that there was going to be a 2-week lead time and they planned accordingly. Today's consumer, I mean, Bruno Massel ordered a mechanical pump from us through JEGS, and we drop shipped it to Topeka, red label, and we had the mechanical pump that he needed on the shelf. That is the thing that we have had to do with Amazon training everyone that you should have product on the shelf ready to sell. We have to follow that. We have to be able to have product on the shelf. And so much of our product that we have is so crazy, you know, especially in the Waterman line. You know, I have fuel pumps that'll support 10,000 horsepower. Well, believe it or not, we have the sub-assemblies ready to go in case somebody calls looking for one of those. I want people, when they buy product from us, to understand not only do we stand behind it, but if you have, you know, a necessity for something else that we make, we will have that part in stock ready to ship. During COVID, hey, we sucked. I mean, who would have ever thought that businesses would grow like they grow during COVID? But now that things have kind of slowed down a little bit and we're going back to a more normal business cycle, we've been able to put product on the shelf, and we're shipping, you know, 98% complete to our big distributors in 48 hours, which is a great service. So when a guy calls up and, you know, he spends an hour talking to one of our tech guys, and the tech guy walks him through everything and he goes, okay, I'll take it all. The worst case is when the tech guy goes, well, I don't have this and it's going to be 3 weeks. So we had to eliminate that problem by putting product on the shelf.
I'm glad, very much glad that the days, I mean, I remember when you would order a bolt-on part and it would come with like a hacksaw, a pipe bender, a blowtorch, because I mean, it was just a laughable thing. But now I've heard that from so many people in the manufacturing space, and I do think it's interesting, and it's pushed the whole industry forward. So kudos to you guys for contributing to that.
One more thing on that. If we want to make our industry bigger, we have to make it easier for people to build the cars that they want to build. So 25 years ago, if you were going to build a drag and drive car, a hot rod, whatever, not only did you have to have a little bit of money in your pocket, but you had to be a dang fabricator. Well,
You're so right.
Today's day and age, if you can bolt, if you know that right tightens and left loosens and you can read, you can dang near build, an 8-second streetcar. That's wonderful. I mean, that opens our industry up to so many more people. And that's what we need to do. We can't have the mindset that you're not smart enough to build a car, or you've never gotten dirty in your life. Who cares? Take the money, expand our industry, make it so your kid will be able to play in this industry, his kid will be able to play in this industry. The passion that we have for this industry is what's going to keep it going. And it's no different than the passion that, our parents had, our grandparents had, or the guy down the street had 50 years ago. We are passionate about our cars, and that's what makes, I haven't gone to work in 30 years. I've gone to have fun. I love this job. I left at one time, and the day I walked out these doors, I knew I made a mistake. It took me 11 years to get back here. And thank God Steve Matusik got himself buried with buying Waterman and needed help. And we ran into each other. Steve Matusik and Lori Matusik were at the Kansas Speedway. We were drag racing down pit road.
I remember it. Yeah.
And I ran into him. He's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm semi-retired." And he goes, "How's that going?" And I said, "Not worth a crud." I said, "I need to figure out how to take $25,000 a year out of my spending habits, or I'm going to be out of money at about 58. So he's like, "Hey, you want a job?" And I'm like, "That's a loaded question." You need to tell me what you want me to do and how much it pays, and then I'll let you know. So, I was blessed that, I never burned a bridge. Steve and I stayed friends the entire time, and he offered me this job back. And it's like, heck yeah, I'll come back. It's just such a fun company that he designed and built and then handed over to us to let us run it. And, hey, we didn't ruin it,
No, I mean, it's amazing because I feel like the Aeromotive, there's a real Aeromotive legacy. Like that big A means something. Yeah. And that says a lot. I told you guys early on when we first started working together that I felt Aeromotive was something of a status symbol in our industry. I mean, it was a sought after brand. It was an established premium brand, and it's awesome to see the company continuing to flourish after all these years. What are we doing? Like 25 plus years, almost 30, right?
It'll be 30 next year. And
30 next year.
Now our goal is to take all of our other brands and make them staples in the market, make them the industry leaders within the categories that they play. And we got our work cut out for us, but we have a successful roadmap. Steve laid out a wonderful roadmap, and we have a whole bunch of other people that now work for us that are from other industries, but have great ideas that we never thought of because we're car guys. So this is about where we see. Well, they bring ideas that they've done in other industries, and then we collaborate on, okay, how do we implement this into our industry? And what we've done so far in the short amount of time, it's like, hey, it works. Huh. Kind of like you got a part, you hooked it up, and it worked, 30 years ago.
Right.
The same feeling you get. So we're definitely excited about what the future has, what the future of the industry is, with the push to have kids doing more VOTEC, the white piece of paper maybe not being as valuable as it used to be, back in my day and age. We got to get these kids hands-on. And yeah, this is an expensive sport, so we probably don't need them working at Casey's. We probably need them running Casey's. So anytime I get a chance to speak to the youth of today, education is the ultimate thing that's going to make you the most amount of money. Doesn't mean you got to go to college, but you
got to have an education.
You have to have a skill, and whatever that skill is, the harder you work, more than likely, the more money you'll make. So now I'm getting to the age where I used to be the young kid in the industry. Now I'm the old fart in the industry, and I want to give back to the youth and mentor people, and I bring kids through this facility that, don't know what they want to be, don't know what they want to do, but they like cars. So it's like, hey, I got a spot for you. You may not like the first job I'm going to put you at, but show me your skill, show me your dedication, and I can move you through this company.
Embrace the opportunity, right?
Absolutely.
In sense, I preach it all the time. I literally had this conversation with a new team member yesterday, and I said, there's an opportunity here. And I remember when I was young, and I would be like, oh man, this isn't exactly what I want to do, but it's like a step in that direction. So I need to put my head down, keep my ears open, my mouth shut, and forge forward and be a sponge and try to absorb as much information as I possibly can. And maybe one day I'll get closer to where I want to be, man. And I got to tell you, last thing, Jeff, if you ever show up to one of my races and don't tell me you're coming again, we're gonna have trouble, You showed up to the World Series of Pro Mod, bought a ticket, sat in the grandstands, didn't even say hi. But I guess you were trying to play. You were trying to be a fan, right?
I wanted to see what the fans' experience was. I knew I could call you and get in free and get special treatment. I didn't want that. I wanted to go and say, yes, if I spent $30 on this ticket, I got $300 worth of entertainment. You know, had it rained, had it been 150 degrees, had you had an oil down every other pass, you know, it would have changed the experience. But the show was very well run. The racers were in such a relaxed, easygoing mood. Unfortunately, I can't walk up to somebody and pretend I'm nobody.
Right,
you know?
right.
I'm not anybody special, but people throughout the industry recognize me. But watching the interaction of the racers with the casual fan, you know, and the Janus group having kids in and out of their car, you know, like it was the dang, you know, Ferris wheel at the circus. It was great to see. And then we have to continue to involve the youth. You know, I challenge anybody that's going to the racetrack that's a bracket racer or a professional racer. I don't care what you are. Grab your next door neighbor's kid, drag him to the dang racetrack, get the Xbox out of his hand, get him out of the basement, drag him to the racetrack, because that's my neighbors is what spurred my interest in this. And you know, I always tell people we have to load the bus faster than the people are jumping off the back of the bus, or nothing's going to grow.
Yeah, so, we in the sales world, as you well know, you got to have a pipeline. You know what I mean? Like if you don't have a pipeline, you're in trouble, man. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it more than you know. I look forward to seeing you back down at Bradenton, maybe twice next year. And I guess we'll cross paths later this year at the NHRA National event in Las Vegas, because you guys will be out there getting ready for SEMA.
Yep.
Okay, man. Well, sounds like a plan. Let's go for dinner.
All right.
All right, it's on me. All right, thanks, Jeff. We'll talk to you soon, brother. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode of Drag